People always seek peace, but paradoxically they live in a world full of chaos. They rush into an endless race in search of success after a reputation for money. They realize that the peace they want doesn't bring. The mind is ripped apart from 1,000 thoughts, always unconfident, stressed, anxious, frightened. They think they can achieve more will make them happier, but what they really need is nothing more but less delusion, less desire, less anxiety. That's why silence becomes the highest kingdom people can reach. Silence is not silence. It doesn't escape life from the world, or the state of apathy is the ultimate power of thought, in a state in which, though the world is chaos wherever you go, you are still as clear as the lake is smooth, reflecting the heavens. A person who reaches silence can live half a lifetime without being torn apart. They can face every challenge and scandal, every change, not losing yourself. This is not a supernatural force, but it's a training capacity. Art that wise people, great leaders, Zen's master and warriors have all held 4 basic principles in Eastern philosophy. Helping people. Perfect is kindness, saving, peace, rest. Compassion is love for all beings, but not weakness or blindness. Saving is simplicity, not only in matter but also by mind. A simple idea less difficult than a complex thought. Peace is in harmony with yourself and the world. Is the ability to adapt without losing nature. But tin is the peak, because when one reaches silence, they don't have to try to be compassionate. You don't need to make you want to live just to go to yoga. All natural silence is the root of wisdom, is the basis for inner strength. So how can we reach an immovable state? We'll go through this journey together to understand every principle, apply them correctly, and finally achieve the steadfast heart of absolute domain. Too seemingly simple word, but it's one of the most honest virtues. To which compassion can be achieved is not just pity, no weakness or cowardice, unconditional tolerance. True compassion against evil is strength and wisdom. And to understand a great enough attitude, so strong that it is not offended, and intelligent enough not to take advantage of it. But why? Empathy is often misunderstood. Many people think compassion means always surrendering to forgiveness, always suffer. They consider a compassionate person who never gets angry, never complain, never say no. This very thought turned empathy into weakness. To give bad boys the opportunity to manipulate, to take advantage of good people, is not truly the person who allows others to do what they want. They do not let their kindness become an instrument to be manipulated by others, and they don't use the name of compassion to forgive evil. Look at history. Buddha is a symbol of compassion, but he never gave in to corruption. When Devadatta plotted to kill Buddha, doesn't harbor a grudge. But also don't let yourself be a victim when someone hurts her. Buddha doesn't get angry, but not to endure silently, meaninglessly. He answered with wisdom and calmness, with inner strength, not weakness. Hatred is like fire. The more it holds, the almighty man is not the enemy, but someone who is more immersed in indignation. Their minds are increasingly burned by negative emotions. People who hold grudges live bitter lives even if they can take revenge. They too do not feel happier. Forgiving does not mean forgetting everything, or accepting all the damages. Forgiveness is an act of wisdom. When a person truly understands the nature of vulnerability, they will understand it to the one who has caused them suffering. Also, just victims of their own false thinking and their own sowing does not mean justifying evil. But don't let the same level of negativity be pulled down by a truly compassionate person. Don't let others feel negative. Penetrating in my mind, they don't get upset by the meaningless words. They don't hold grudges because they realize that it only hurts them. You want to use compassion first to understand clearly that each person has his or her own suffering who harms another person, usually someone who has been offended. When you understand this, we will reduce dissatisfaction, and instead this is not to acknowledge the mistake, but from a different perspective. They do not always do what others want. A truly compassionate person. People don't like it, but someone who helps them realize the best way to love someone, helping them to realize their mistakes, not to surrender to them when they have betrayed and offended. Human instinct is the indignation of anger, to blame, even revenge. But a truly compassionate person won't let those feelings control me. They may be sad, but they don't let anger prevail. They may be disappointed, but they don't let it change them. To become another man doesn't mean being a deceiver, but to become a strong man in your own way. As a man with a strong innermost self can control emotions and don't let you be affected by negative things. You will see that compassion is not just virtue, but also strength to help you overcome all the suffering of life. People often understand the word saving in a narrow sense. Just save money, reduce costs to live savings. But saving is actually a much deeper principle. It's not just about saving money. It's also about minimalism thinking. Words and actions by someone who uses savings correctly. Not simply living, but also having a peaceful mind. Life, look wise without excess, or the great men of our history shall see that they always seek no luxury, but choose a less desired path. For big thinkers like Lao Tzu or Confucius also highlight simplicity. Because they realize that complex things are splendor, vanity only makes people more confused. And the more confused things a person has to worry about, the more ambitious a person is, the more vulnerable he is. Frugal is not about giving up everything, but know enough about how to miss what's unnecessary. Is an attitude toward internal freedom to optimize energy and time. The world today is constantly stimulating people's consumption. They're caught shopping. Think that having more will make them happier and happier with reality. The more they are, the more they are afraid of losing. The more they accumulate, the more they are tied up. A house full of furniture doesn't mean a full life. That is sometimes just a prison to imprison people in material addiction. A man who engages in saving is not a knife, but someone who knows when they don't follow the idea enough not to be caught in meaningless desires. They know the value of a person, not what they have, but it is in their character and intelligence. There is a story that says a monk visited a wealthy businessman. As he entered the home of a wealthy businessman, but his face is full of fatigue, the monk asked him if he was happy. "I have too much to worry about losing and robbing. Fear of not being rich like others." A smiling monk, then, "You are not the master of these things who control him. To live sparingly does not mean giving up material things completely, but to use them wisely. Don't let them control your life. When one knows how to simplify unnecessary things will make them feel the relief of freedom." Besides material things, saving is also a saving in thinking. The human mind is often filled with thousands of thoughts every day, but how much is it really worth? They worry about the past, they fear the future. Compare envy with others. What such thoughts don't just waste time but also consume energy. Makes people always feel anxious and fatigued. To be the man who really understands saving, knows how to clean up the mind. To keep only useful thoughts. They don't let them fall into gossip. Worry no waste of time about things you can't control. They realize that the simple idea is simpler than the messy mind. Imagine the mind as a lake. If we continue to stick to chaotic thoughts, the surface of the water will always be smooth, and the waves can't be clearly reflected. But if we allow it to be regulated as transparent, we can see to the end. It's like Qiyam is also a great source of strength. People often talk a lot, but they don't listen much. They're quick to criticize the argument without realizing it. Each word affects not only others but also affects themselves. One word can hurt, and one malicious word can create bad karma. For a person who speaks sparingly is not a spare person, but someone who says only what is really necessary. They realize that silence is appropriate. A wise man more than 1,000 words doesn't need to say much in their presence to show intelligence and strength. One king once asked a wise man, "Mister, why are you so silent?" "Because words need to be used at the right time, and if you spend extravagantly sooner or later." Big leaders, deep thinkers, really strong people always understand the value of words. They don't speak only to fill the void. Don't argue to prove yourself unjustified, to show authority. They know when to speak and when to keep quiet. You can get caught in a job. You really don't need to run after busy life without realizing it. Quality is more important than a person who really understands saving. How to optimize your actions. They don't work blindly, but don't let the strategic name distract you from the details. But focusing on the most important things. To work smartly is better. Not needing one person to do a great job, but a purposeful action should be more effective than hundreds of meaningless actions. Finally, apply preserve not only helps people have a simpler life but also helps them achieve freedom. A man who is not connected with material things, don't say unnecessary things and useless thoughts. It's really a free man. And freedom is the basis for achieving silence. But understanding the static first, we need to study the next principle, painting, a perfect balance between man and the universe in 4 words: kindness, saving, peace, rest. Then peace is a state that helps people gain balance. in line with Him, with others and the whole universe. If compassion is the compassion that helps people treat one another well, then peace is the principle of helping people live without conflict. No stress has been taken by unnecessary contrast. But painting does not mean yielding or compromising. The mistake of a person who truly understands peace is not a man who always bows down to every situation, but he is someone who knows how to compromise without losing you. They can be flexible but not hesitant, soft, but not weak. You know how to adapt to yourself without losing basic values. Why people always feel insecure about the reason people suffer from conflict is because they don't really understand peace. Fighting with others to cope with life, the more you try to cope with the natural course of life, they're more tired of understanding harmony. Adapting to all circumstances, but it still retains its nature. Most humans suffering from the non-external world, but they come from internal conflicts. They want something, but they do something else. They yearn for peace, but they want to fall into desires and anxieties. But there's a complicated man who's not in harmony with himself. You'll always feel stressed by torturing them, feeling that it's never enough. Never exactly perfect. They are ripped between want and need, between past and future, between intelligence and emotion. So you want to achieve harmony with yourself first. Accept that no one is perfect, that people always have weaknesses, that every mistake can be a lesson. When a person stops fighting himself, stop accusing yourself of feeling a deep sense of peace. A story about an old armor driver. When he was young, he was always tormented by the past. Never feel satisfied with your future. He went to the teacher and asked, how did the teacher show you a river and tell you how to stop having conflicts with yourself? It's not trying to be a sea, don't try to reign nor try to be anything else outside it, so it's always peaceful. Being in harmony with yourself means knowing how to accept yourself. Love yourself and stop running after standards that others impose. An inner balance. They will no longer feel empty or insecure. To understand harmony with yourself, but as for going to yoga with others. Of course, people cannot avoid clashes, conflict, but people understand peace. He will know how to adapt without losing yourself. They do not argue stubbornly to prove themselves right. Don't try to get others to do what you want them to. Understand that sometimes tracking is not a failure, but the harmony needed to maintain a relationship, to create a common space. Nevertheless, a wise man knows when to yield. Someone who truly understands peace will not be involved in useless conflicts, but also don't let others violate your values. The king wanted a counselor to order a test to invite the wise men to court, and then put a picture of them in conflict. A scene of flowing stream but reflects the image of peaceful skies. Many argue about the meaning of the controversial painting, but only one person was quietly watching the question. The man just smiled and said, harmony doesn't mean the absence of opposition. In the running water, the king immediately appointed him counselor. True harmony is not the elimination of conflict, but knowing how to survive in conflict. Still maintaining peace is not just about harmonizing yourself and others, but also harmony with the universe and nature. In Doceism is a concept called idleness. That is, doing nothing, but from achieving everything. This doesn't mean being passive, but to realize that everything has its rules. The more a person tries to control everything, the more miserable he is. But the man who accepts and integrates into the natural course of life, for them, everything will be lighter and less stressful. As water isn't as resilient as anything, but it can penetrate rocks. A person who knows how to live in harmony with nature, to embrace things that you know how to be flexible but still preserve your own nature, is someone who truly understands peace, who has never reached peace. But when they really understand peace, it's to harmonize with itself, with others, in the universe. And they'll touch a higher state, which is silence. So what is static? Why is the highest kingdom? And how to achieve absolute silence? It from helps people have love. Frugal helps people be saving. Frugal helps people reach a balance, and the static is the highest condition, where all the turmoil is extinguished, where the mind reaches absolute wisdom. Thrift knew a friend who lived in isolated mountains, away from the world, but the mind is still full of anxiety, and anxiety that is not calm. But in crowded areas, their hearts are as steadfast as the mountain, not caught up in the storms of life. Then it's a real static. But how do you get to this still? How to keep the mind shaken by external circumstances? Its key is in the following three principles. Release the first principle from the burden of mind. Most people don't reach silence because they hold on too much to unstable things. They hold on to the past and torture themselves for things that cannot be changed. They worry about the future. And immersed in unrealistic fears, they cling to the opinions of other people without realizing that all of this is just small waves on the surface of the ocean of consciousness. We bear excessive burdens of hatred and discontent in our hearts about things that have not yet been. It's these apps that make the mind calm. To reach silence, first you have to learn to miss. Missing out doesn't mean giving up artificial control earlier that we're trying to impose a miss on. It means understanding that everything has its rules and nothing also under human control. A man who knows how to miss out will no longer fall into unnecessary pain. They may love, but not cling to, may work, but it may not be obsessed with the results of living in the world, but don't let the world connect you. See the second principle of observation, without falling into it. There is a very strange truth. If you sit still and just watch your mind, you'll see it working continuously. From one thought to another. From one concern to another, leaping your mind from the branch like a wild monkey to a branch. But the truth is that you're not your mind. If you can take a step back and follow your thoughts objectively as you watch it flowing alongside a river, you will understand it. Those thoughts, you don't really come and go, but you, the observer, are still there. This is the essence of meditation. Meditation doesn't mean controlling the mind, no longer unintentionally responding in every situation. They are not caught in anger by compliments or criticism. They see things simple with uncomfortable desires, but don't let it affect your real nature. Have you ever understood the secret of absolute peace? When you are totally focused on something, a beautiful songbook, then your mind is totally calm, because in those moments you really live and are truly present in reality. A man who reaches a state of silence is someone who lives fully at any moment, doesn't pursue them from fearing the past for what comes. They no longer divide themselves outside the flow of life, but with it. Laozi once said, "When you're sad, you live in the past. When you're worried about the future, when you live in peace, you live in the present." Living in the full present clearly recognizes every thought of every moment and every breath, not allowing it to control you. A person who reaches immobility will no longer be pulled over, no longer controlled by emotion. They'll be like a quiet lake. No matter how winds blow, it still faithfully reflects everything, without shock. This is the highest state of consciousness, where there is no more opposition, no more contradiction, no more insecurity. This is absolute freedom from illusions. How to understand more than just a static, but it actually lives in it. The theory of static can be very deep, but if we only stop at the level of understanding, without using it practically, it's nothing different from a beautiful map, but it's never been used for navigation. Static is not a concept of discussion, but a state that needs to live, a force to train in life. I want to reach silence. We can't just wait for life to be easy. No movement, then silence, because if so, the static has no value at all. The beauty of static is that even in trouble, even in a storm, the mind is still peaceful. But how to do it is in 3 words. The first idea is to control the body. Remember that the body and mind are not separated. A person with a troubled body can't have a calm mind. When the body is anxious and constantly moves, rapid breathing easily interferes with the mind. On the contrary, if you learn how to regulate your body, you will open the door to inner silence. Method of teaching 10. Breath control. When stressful or upset, just take a few deep breaths and slow down the pace. You will immediately feel that your mood will fade. As you sit down, sit upright but not tense. When you're standing, stand at the center of a stable weight. When you go unconscious, and chew slowly. When you eat in a hurry, talk slowly while working. Instead of rushing, apply relaxation. Doesn't mean you have to sit in the place all the time, but to maintain calm and control every step. Monday, relax and master the flow of emotions. The human mind is like a lake. If the lake is constantly touched by emotions, it will be cloudy and cannot truly reflect the world. But when water is calm, everything will clearly reflect. No distortion of the application of rest. Watch the feelings instead of falling into them. When angry, stop for a moment instead of immediately responding and watch that anger. Ask questions. Why I'm angry? Where does this anger come from? Whether it really is necessary. You'll see it only by looking at the storm's gradual loss of power. Avoid unnecessary instigators. Negative arguments, jealous thoughts are all poisonous to prevent the mind from relaxing. Be selective about what you accept every day. Apply gratitude when you are grateful for what you have. Your mind will no longer interfere with endless desires. Thanksgiving is a very powerful method of achieving silence. Tuesday. Keep your mind steady in the face of all events. When a person has rest, they will no longer be shocked. They can withstand difficulties without panic. They can be hurt without being angry. Can withstand major events by still maintaining its wisdom and training methods. Learn to accept instability. Life always changes. Nothing will last forever. When you realize this, you will no longer hold on to unreserved things. When a storm comes, you can't stop it, but you can learn to stand firm in that storm. Don't let external circumstances determine your inner state. People can say good or bad about you. Circumstances can be favorable or disadvantageous. But if you let those things determine your mood, then you will remain a slave of the outside world forever. A man who has truly reached the man of enlightenment who can hold fast to his inner self. No matter how it changes, there are people who learn a lot. You read a lot, but the more you study, the more confused you are. Intelligence is not a fillet of knowledge, but don't immerse yourself in excesses. Many believe that to achieve silence, they have to live separately to the deep mountains of the forest or the high mountains. But the truth is static. You can do your breathing in the middle of your daily life, instead of rushing to look at the environment. Not letting your mind worry about eating carefully. To feel every taste instead of thinking about work. When you have a problem, stop for a few seconds. Take a deep breath and think carefully before responding. Just apply these little things. You'll see a significant difference in your thinking. You will find that you are no longer obsessed with emotion. No longer allow any self-reliant reactions to control you. You will feel a sense of peace from within. Unwavering silence. When someone truly reaches silence, they will have something no one can take away. Internal freedom is no longer controlled by emotions, no longer under the illusion of no longer being afraid of instability. There'll be mountains in a storm, the surface of the lake in a storm, into the sky in the midst of the world's disturbance, and you will figure it out in the end.